I added bombs to my indie game. Hey there, Editor Alex here. Apparently you're not allowed to say the B word on YouTube, so I'm just going to replace that with this generic text-to-speech voice saying
Explosion device.
Alright, back to the video. Why did I add
Explosion
to my
device.
game, you say? Well, great question. Mining blocks by hand is fun and all, but nothing is as exciting as blowing the world to pieces with explosions. I started by making a quick sprite sheet of a
Explosion device.
and allowing the player to place it in the world. Very exciting, I know. Then I started messing around with Godot's particle system to get some explosion effects, and well, yeah, it didn't look that great all by itself, so I looked online for a cool pre-drawn explosion sprite sheet, and I found one I really liked by Code Menu on itch.io. I then mixed that with the particles and some lighting effects, and boom, beautiful explosion effects. I also wanted to add some cool sound effects to the
Explosion device.
so I went searching on my go-to free sound website, Freesound, where I found the perfect sound effect by Modus Mogulus. By pitching the sound effect up and down slightly for every
Explosion
bullet
device.
that goes off, I also created this really nice variation, and you can hardly even tell it's the same sound effect that I used over and over again. However, my original idea of making the
Explosion
bomb
device.
explode immediately after placing it didn't feel good at all, and in hindsight was pretty dumb, so I added a fuse animation and another sound effect from Freesound, this time by J1987, and it felt much better. Now we have some great effects, but we still need to make it actually destroy stuff, and that took way longer than I care to admit. My original idea was to have a collision node loop through all the tiles in the vicinity and check if there's a block there to delete, but I severely underestimated the performance cost of making several hundred collision checks in a single frame, so I pivoted to a coordinate lookup method, which was way faster. With that, I deleted the blocks and instantiated item pickups with the block's item, just like what happens when you mine blocks by hand. Now the
Explosion device.
look great from afar, but if you stand too close or if a mob walks into the explosion range, it looks a bit underwhelming. So I made the player and mobs take damage with the amount depending on how close you are to the
Explosion device.
Then I added some juicy camera shake, also depending on how close you are. And that's pretty much it for the
Explosion device.
Now we just need a way to acquire them. While I did give them a chance to spawn in structures inside chests, that's not really a farmable method for players to get them, so we need a way to craft them. My game does have a crafting system, but I want to add a vast variety of different
Explosion
bombs
device.
in the future, so I felt like separating crafting bombs from the other simpler items was the right call. So I started working on what would come to be called the Explosives Crafting Bench. After drawing this right and making it placeable just like
Explosion device.
I made it so that when the player gets close enough, you can interact with it to bring up the Explosives crafting menu, which exclusively crafts, well, explosives. I then tied that back to the core game loop by making the Explosives crafting bench craftable like other crafting benches. I have a lot more ideas for future explosives, like explosives that only affect floor tiles and perhaps even elemental
Explosion
bombs,
device.
so stay tuned by subscribing, and if this game looks interesting to you, I've heard that the wishlist button on Unearthed's Steam store page works just fine, so, go ahead and give that a smack or two. Okay, that's all I got for you today, so bye!